everybody, welcome back to Fosse Verdon. This week we're going to talk all about Nicole and where she is now. We're going to talk about her creation and what her parents had to go through to have her. We're also going to talk all about the play Chicago. Are you ready? 5, 6, 7, 8.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
5, 6, 7, 8. Hey everybody, welcome back to Fosse Verdon. Thank you again for joining us this week. This is the penultimate. We got one more.
I know. Where'd it go?
Almost done.
But it's so good now.
I know. Every week it just keeps getting better and better. I love this show so much. I'm so sad that it's ending soon. But we are still talking about this show that is happening currently, and so it's not over just yet, and we can still have 2 weeks worth of talking to go. I think, Kim, your thing is on a little bit. If you want to just mute that. And
sure.
Speaking of Kim, I have my two co-hosts with me. Kim over here is our Chicago expert aficionante.
Oh, wow. Huge honor. Thank you. Yeah, tonight I was so excited. I'm like dancing in my seat, watching, singing. I hope no one heard me, actually. So excited. Love this so much. It's just getting better and better and better and better and better and better.
One more.
Better.
Yeah.
There we go.
Nailed it.
And right next to Kim, we have Miss Amy Maestri. She is our resident musical lover, but also our fact checker on everything that's happening in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, if they were wrong, I will find them and murder them for everyone. So.
Wow, Liam Neeson.
Okay. Awkward.
I just thought about taken. I will find you.
Oh no! Yeah, right. No, yeah. I just look at facts. That's
There we
it.
go.
I just look at them.
And I am your host, Briana Phipps. I love Bob Fosse. I followed Chicago was my favorite musical growing up. So not Chicago, Cabaret, and I also love Chicago.
Yeah.
Both C's, okay?
Yes. It's charity.
So
Chicago.
I loved this episode as well. I loved, having Liza, even though we didn't get to see her, she basically made a return.
She did.
But we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about, like I said, Nicole, this recital that she had, what happened with her parents, not really paying attention. We're going to also talk about what they went through to actually have her and the difficulties with all of that. We're going to get into Chicago, Gwen's polyps as well, and everything going along with that, as well as our Fosse Fun Facts brought to us by Amy. Kim's got some great news and gossip, I'm sure, for us.
I do indeed. And I've got the chat going on here too.
And she's in the chat, so if you're with us, go ahead and chat along with her, and she will shout you out. We also have our predictions coming up at the end of the episode, so you're going to want to stay tuned. But first of all, what was your overall thoughts on this episode?
I'll go.
Okay.
I think I was kind of anticipating this episode all season. I was waiting. I mean, they had so much build up to like all the talk of like Gwen looking towards Chicago and all the work that she put into it. And for me, it paid off. Like, they did such a good build-up throughout the season, and I feel like they did a really good balance of giving us just enough of, like, the rehearsals and getting to see them do get into these characters and these songs that everyone knows and loves so much, while also still getting so heavy into, like, Gwen and Bob's dynamic right now that I really, really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I think for sure this was the most riveting episode ever, with just so much going on as well, real meaty pieces, like everything was strong and interesting. And just to have such a talented production team putting this on as well, like only thespians truly get this, and the juxtaposition of Gwen with the top hat and doing the Chicago look, like it was just fabulous. And I only think, like Lin-Manuel, etc., you can tell there's that driving force of theatre behind it, which is just perfect. Thank goodness they did it this way. It's great.
Yeah, I really did love this episode as well. I loved the little behind-the-scenes things we got of Gwen being the MC, as well as the little musical numbers we got. I loved Razzle Dazzle.
Yeah.
And it made me kind of sad, though, for the Cabaret part, because Cabaret is my favorite. Like, I wish we had something along those lines happening when they did Cabaret.
That's because Chicago's the better show,
like,
darling.
I don't know if I have the best seat to be in between you guys during this episode right now.
Bring it.
No, I mean, I just would have loved to had spent a little bit more time on Cabaret. Like, I wish it was almost 10 episodes, so we could have had that little extra time with that one, because I felt that one we got thrust into in the beginning of the show, and it was quickly ended. Like, I'm still waiting for the scene of her showing up with the monkey mask.
Yeah, true.
Like, what did she see? We never got it. But maybe we'll get it. Maybe we'll get it next week. Maybe we'll jump back.
There we go. One other just randomly. Here's an old Cabaret flashback.
Probably not. But let's start off with this episode about Nicole, because Nicole did play a heavy part in this episode, whether it be with the pregnancy issues or with what's happening with her now. But with what happening with her now is that she's in this recital, and I know what the backstory of it is that Anne got her into ballet. So, and Anne's not able to make the performance that night, but Gwen and Bob basically aren't able to make the performance because they're too busy talking to each other and fighting over the finale ending of Chicago to be able to pay attention to their daughter.
So wrong on so many levels. Apart from the obvious, one of the most frustrating things when you go to the theatre are people in front of you talking. You just want to slap them around the heads. Like, seriously, I'm surprised I didn't get that way earlier. So that's frustrating in itself. But poor Nicole, I mean, obviously you can see her performing, and we all know from stage, despite the lights in our faces, you can still see audience members at times.
Especially when
depending
you're
on where they
looking
are.
for a specific one.
Exactly. And it didn't look super dark in that auditorium either. But yeah, to see your parents there completely not engaging at all must have felt absolute crap. So I felt so sorry for her. But Ron's there, cheering on. I like him more and more each episode. He seems like a real grounded sweetheart who's there, really truly there for others rather than themselves. So I thought that was interesting to see him.
Yeah, I think seeing him, especially too in that scene afterwards when they get back, and he's still encouraging her, and Gwen's just like, don't do that. That's mean.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yes, I get that, like, he's being nice and kind, but there's also, I get what Gwen was saying insofar as I mean, what's the balance when you've got kids? I don't know, because I don't have them.
I think the balance is maybe you can say that if you actually were supportive, but you're zero supportive, so he has to amp his game up.
Interesting, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was definitely overcompensating in that, just because, I mean, even the whole time when Bob and Gwen were fighting, he was just kind of glancing at them like he was realizing that he was going to have to step up. So yeah, it's that in-between of like, no, you don't have to tell them that they're going to win like a Tony by the time they're 10,
also,
but
like, you don't have to do it in front of her.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to say those things, like, maybe pull him aside and be like, I just don't want you to get our hopes up. It's a really hard world. Like, it didn't feel that way.
Wasn't it whispered, though?
Yeah.
Wasn't she like, don't say that? Right?
No, she just flat out said it, I felt.
Oh,
yeah,
that's sad.
and I feel like I get it. Like someone who's in show business who knows that it's not easy, who knows it's not just like, oh yeah, you're kind of good at something, you'll be a star. Like it's a protective mom thing, but it's also like
there was a better way to say it.
Exactly.
The way she said it.
Yeah.
And the way it came across to Nicole, definitely, I think.
Yeah, poor girl. I mean, she wasn't, if you looked at her dancing on purpose, she wasn't technically very good. Particularly the late where she's like, ugh.
I mean, and we know that she doesn't necessarily have the longest, best career. I can add a little bit more into it when we get to the Fosse Fun Facts, because I did look up Nicole and her career. And as far as dancing goes, she wasn't necessarily going on to become the world's greatest dancer.
No.
But
which
you know,
like
it's still
what a
your daughter.
bummer.
Yeah.
As
Well, you could
Fosse Verdon's child.
And Gwen, yeah, it's like, or Gwen, instead of saying that, could like be like, let me help you with your technique as somebody that's a dancer. Like, but I don't know. It just,
or unless she felt that she just, sometimes you've innately got it or you don't. Maybe she felt that this was a lost cause and maybe it's not her main forte.
with the jumping back and forth between the past and now, it's like, it just felt like you tried so hard to have this girl, to have a child that it feels like you don't even care about anymore. Not that they don't care about her, but it's just like that's how it came across this episode, is that she was the last thing in their minds.
It's just so interesting as it goes on. They just seem more and more self-absorbed, don't they? Like true artists, like when they're so like just in their own world, it's all ego, etc. So poor Nicole.
Yeah, I
she
think
needs a cuddle.
they are really. She does need a cuddle. Everyone needs a cuddle.
Although I did
sometimes.
love Ron calling Gwen out, like when she's like, "Well, I need to be back in the show later on, because royalties for Nicole are going to help her." He goes, "Nicole's fine."
Yeah.
He like called her out. He's like, don't act like you're doing this for Nicole."
That was such an ego moment, yeah, because it's like, you're already one of the best Broadway dancers of all time. Her dad is already, a renowned choreographer, director. You're both winning. Like, I think she's going to be okay. Yes, sure. If you got royalties for Chicago for years to come, be more than okay. But, like,
but she's also not
I think she's doing all right now, yeah.
But then, we jump back and we see kind of everything that they had to do to have her, which I think then adds to the more of a surprise of like them not being more involved with her life, because it wasn't an easy go. We see that at the very beginning of the episode, she's just chucking things at Bobbins because he cheated on her.
That was amazing.
And then right after he proposes and says, "I want to have a baby."
I wanted to actually kill him right then. What an a-hole. Like, seriously, you fucking, I want to kill him. Woo! What a manipulating.
I still don't like where I'm sitting right now. I'm still feeling very
That
unsettled.
bitch makes my blood boil. What an ass. Talk about selfish. He's just gone off and cheated with her. She's so upset, and he knows the things that she wants is family and love and all that sort of stuff. Any guy, I'm going to look in the camera, any guy that does that to a woman and gets her while she's down, watch out, you ass. I can't believe it. She's sitting there crying. He's cheating on her and, I want to marry you. I want to put a ring on your finger. I want to have a baby.
But it is
That's
so
how I feel.
but it is so true to like life. Like that's how it goes when someone
No!
cheats. No, I'm saying when someone cheats, that's what they do though. They like overcompensate.
Yeah. And then later on, when they find out that she is pregnant, then he has, this is so typical of a cheater, then he has the nerve to say to her, is it really mine? Like, have you been sleeping around on me?
And we'll get there in a second.
Sorry.
But before that, they go and they find out they're trying to get pregnant, and Gwen's, she's assuming it's her fault that they can't.
Yeah.
She's like, I know I'm not I'm a little older than most mothers. And the doctor, who's also a huge Gwen Verdon fan,
Yeah.
he says, actually, it's not your fault. It's Mr. Fosse has some slow swimmers, basically. They're not very strong.
That has got to be gut-wrenching to a male, though, isn't it? That's got to be the worst.
Slow swimmers.
I think it's like a double for him because, like, he
totally.
wants to be the star and he's, like, not being recognized.
Absolutely.
He's like, I'm also this, and this. Like, and it's like, oh.
That's
Gwen.
an ongoing theme for him, though, isn't it?
Yeah, this show
Constantly.
has done such a good job with like ongoing themes, whether it's like an arc throughout a couple different episodes or within one episode, to see these themes that they have so strong and like that promise of the premise in every single episode. Of this one, it's all about ego from both of them, because like we said with Gwen and kind of like where she's coming from with really wanting Chicago to be her thing, but then trying to make it sound like it's about something else, to like Bob finding out something like this, and it's always that thing that's always been there, and it really came to a point of him just he's wanting to be a leading man. He's realizing maybe he won't be. He's wanting to be a dad. He's realizing it's his fault that he can't be. Like, it's all they did a really good job of leading to this episode,
especially in like when we were looking at other episodes when it was always stemming from his childhood, when his dad wasn't approving of him, etc. It's been a theme throughout his entire life. Never been good enough, so no wonder he's got such a selfish drive to show the world that he is,
Yeah.
And I just want to say really quickly, woohoo, our chat is going crazy. McKenna, thanks. Jazz 41173, Watcher Carter, everyone's jumping in here with a whole bunch of stuff. They liked Ron. He was always a good stepdad. You just never know the financial situation of anyone. Watcher Carter. Was that you're talking about with the royalties from Chicago, obviously? And Jazz loved it when the doctor called him Mr. Fosse.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. Fosse.
Yeah, we're talking about like a couple blows to his ego.
And this is before, obviously, like nowadays you say Fosse and anyone, especially anyone in the theater community, is going to know exactly who you're talking about. But this is, this is at the beginning of his career. The thing is that her career in the middle to the height was the very start of his. And the end of her career was the height of his. So both of them had to go through these blows, as we see later on in the episode, which we will get to as well. So you're going to want to stay tuned for all of that drama. But she's going through all these procedures, and this is now, like, it's still a long procedure nowadays to try to have children when it's hard, and like the injections and everything. And this is the 70s or 60s, so it's even more so.
But isn't it annoying how it was his slow swimmers, but she's the one that has to deal with the cramp?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, Miss Verdon, it's going to be painful and injections and stuff going up. Like, why didn't they work that one out earlier and fix the man for a change? It's always the girl has got to deal with this shit.
I'm not a scientist, so I have no idea.
It's so funny because even through and through everything, Gwen is kind of always there to
She's
pick up
gotta
the
fix
pieces,
it.
and
Well,
then
she's
now,
always- she's always
like,
had to be the person.
biologically, she also has to do it too. It's
And
like
it's such a
come on.
heartbreaking thing when she's doing all of this and they're having sex, and she goes in the bathroom and she's like, I got my period, and she says, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When
Like,
it's
it's her
not her fault.
So true.
And she knows it at that point too. Like, it's one thing a lot of women, if you don't know yet, if you're just trying and you don't know what the issue is, but like she knows.
Wasn't it the perfect resolution though? And it's just so such a great example to all women out there who are seriously trying to have a kid. You know when you're super trying for something and it's got to happen and you're like pushing a rock up a hill versus letting it flow? It just went to show that when they relaxed and they had a nice time and they found out that they were getting an adopted child, the love flowed freely and then it happened naturally.
Yeah.
So I think these days we spend so much money and time and pressure on ourselves, if that was a situation we're in, or our friends do, who so need a child, that all that pressure and stress and anxiety that's swirling throughout the body actually makes you infertile. Whereas if you just relaxed and went with what was meant to be, hopefully eventually it happened. Because I have had a lot of friends, for example, who weren't trying and obviously it happens, and then they're trying and then it doesn't happen, and then when they relax,
Well, I think the problem is that when you first start, you're not like, it's not like you're like, we're trying really hard, but like when it's not happening, then you start freaking out.
That's when the stress hits.
yeah, then there's stress.
And then you're right though. It is usually like when you calm down, but it's hard to get to that point. It's hard to be like, let me just relax when, especially like you don't know, like I'm at a certain age or I have this many years left. Who knows how many years? Maybe I need to freeze. Makes like it's hard to get to that like relaxed spot to be able to let something naturally flow as well.
Yeah. And especially, with this all happening like in the 60s when...
Oh, yeah, different.
My gosh, the amount of technology and advances, but still, I mean, it's still hard. So, I mean, like for them to have had to go through that, to your point, Brie, of like how after all that, you're still just kind of like pushing her to the side so often after you have to go through that much to get her.
Yeah. And so then they, decide, let's try the adoption route because this isn't working. Where we get the Razzle Dazzle song, which I love
that.
because
So good.
it is for when you try to adopt a child or even a pet for that matter. Sometimes you do have to put on this show of like, look at how great our place is. This is going to be perfect for our child. Look at the
tomatoes growing on the vine. Woo!
look at how much
What
money
better
we
job for
make.
Gwen?
Like, oh my god.
That's awesome.
So they put on the Razzle Dazzle and they get approved for a baby, and right after that she faints and they find out she's pregnant.
Yeah. It's so great how all those songs of Chicago, obviously, and it intertwines so well. I mean, I know it's about his life, etc., but it's just beautiful. The way they pieced it together just made so much sense, and it was just amazing. And we have amazingness happening in our chat as well. So we've got Watcher Carter says, I would be so mad if my husband thought she fooled around if I got pregnant. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
I mean, that's also like an insecurity. So if you're fooling around, you automatically are insecure about your other person because you're like, if I'm doing it, I guess that's the thought process. If I'm doing it, she's doing it too.
Probably, yeah, because he views it as so kind of nonchalant in his own mind of him being the one doing it. But then all of a sudden when it's flipped, it's like, oh, no, wait, well, if I'm doing it, she probably is too. But it's wrong if she's doing it now too.
Of course. I've had so many experiences in that with friends, etc., and myself back in the day, where you've got the cheater, and then the cheater's always insecure because that's why they cheat to begin with, and then they blame and put stuff back on you. It's so common.
But through all of that,
Fosse.
she ends up having the baby, and she has little baby Nicole Providence.
Yeah, that's interesting, huh? That's very cute.
And we got a little side of now I'm blanking on the name again, but it'll come to me in one second.
Oh, the other mom?
Bartholomew.
What's her name?
No.
The mother.
Yeah.
The one that died.
Joan.
Yes.
Thank you. I
So
was like,
not Bartholomew,
I knew it started
Joan.
with a J, and
Got
I was
it.
like, it starts with a J, and it's gonna come to me randomly. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. Like I will remember an entire movie script or entire play when I go see it, or every lyric to a song, but when it comes to a name, like it
I
falls
think
out
we'll
of my head.
forgive you. We'll let you off the hook this time, but don't do it
But
again.
Joan Simon. Yeah,
It's
we get to
fine,
see Joan
Sandra.
Simon
We'll
again.
forgive you.
Hey, and just quickly, just before we move on, do you mind? I just wanted to say really quickly thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for allowing us to be the ESPN of TV Talk. If you are watching on YouTube, can you please give us a big thumbs up, and also subscribe would be great. And alternatively, if you're watching on iTunes, if you could give us a 6-star rating. Just kidding, 5 will do. Yeah, that'd be great too. So thank you so much for letting us do what we love. We truly love having fun, hanging out here, and thank you so much. So share, rate, review the show, and we will very much appreciate you. And if you're in the chat, we're going to, shout you out as well. Cool beans?
We really do appreciate it, guys. And if you are on iTunes, like make sure you leave a comment with that 5-star review so we can shout you out, because we can't see who left the 5-star review if you don't leave one. And we want to thank you. So definitely do that for us.
Neat. I just want to say everyone in the chat is going hard and agreeing with me and all of us that I'll just take that. It happens at times when a couple stops worrying about it, sometimes even to the point of setting up adoption. Yeah, they get pregnant and then So
Scientifically speaking, the very serious documentary Baby Mama, starring Amy Poehler and Tina Fey,
I was like, what?
tackles this very subject.
Scientific.
Really biological, scientific look at
It's really
study of everything.
extensive scientific documentary there.
You're welcome. for
That's
that.
hardcore.
But let's talk
Sorry
about
to bring it down.
Gwen's other baby, which is Chicago.
Oh, they're going to say the son that she had that. Sorry.
Yeah, she had the son too. That was a very
Just throw
awkward
that back
moment
in there.
in the
Wasn't
doctor's
it?
office. Oh, but you guys had one pregnancy.
That's another possible reason why he was thinking, oh, who have you been sleeping with? Because when that popped up, he's like, what? Anyway.
But no,
Yikes.
but Chicago, her later in life baby, which was
Yes.
Chicago, because that seemed to be her biggest focus of her career. Really,
Yeah, totally.
is that she really wanted Chicago. And so we start off with them at their first rehearsal after Bob got out of the hospital in 1975. And then finding out they took a $1 million insurance policy out as him as director.
Yeah. Is that common these days?
I mean,
sure.
Patty says that it was common to take insurance policies out on the director, and I think, he almost died. They're like, we need insurance that
I
if
think
something...
that's a fair call from a business perspective.
Yeah,
don't you?
Yeah.
They need to have the money to be able to hire somebody else should anything happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean that happens in all industries too. I mean, like athletes, the amount of insurance that they have. I know David Beckham had like insurance policies on like he couldn't go skiing or
Oh, yeah,
like
that's
certain
normal.
things like that. So it's like, but also, so you always think like, oh yeah, like something like that for an athlete makes sense, but it makes the same kind of sense for someone who's a director or choreographer or someone who's that integral to a project of that magnitude. Like, yeah, you should have that too.
When the investors are putting as much money as they want some insurance. that
Yeah,
This will get made.
yeah.
So he has a $1 million insurance policy out, and we see that he's very unhappy right now. He's,
What a change.
I know, right? He's always so happy-go-lucky until this exact moment. No, but he's very unhappy right now. He's unhappy with how everything's going. He's unhappy with how the show's going. He's unhappy with that he can't get any drugs. He's unhappy that they won't let him drink or smoke.
It's a pretty raw deal, really, isn't it?
I mean, his life is... No, I'm just kidding. He had other hardships in his life. We're not making it seem like he had an easy life. But he's kind of taking it on Gwen. Because, like, Patty's right there being like, look at all the stuff Gwen did for you while you recovered. She was loaning out money to these people to make sure that they would stay on the show for you because you were gone for so long. And he's like, and he basically just throws it in the face saying she just knew no other director would sign up to direct Gwen Verdon as an ingenue.
Oh, ouch. And then later on says that, 15 years earlier she could have done it, but not now.
Yes.
Which, I mean, that line was just so heart-wrenching because you know that
She wanted to.
she was trying, like, after, 10 years that she struggled to get the rights to it, then she had to do the struggles of convincing Bob to do it and getting the producers to know that Bob was on board. And I mean, like, this was literally a 15-year-old baby for her. So when he says, like, oh, yeah, well, you could have done it 15 years ago. And she's like, yeah, I would have loved to do it 15 years ago. But it's taken this long to do it. So that was, like, an especially, like, heart-wrenching line for me in this one.
But going back to where we are with the rehearsal process of the show, he's very unhappy with the fact that it's, again, this very bubbly, comedic, over the top show
Comedy musical, he said. When you're supposed to be murderers and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so he does what Bob Fosse does best and puts a little bit of and by a little I mean a lot, of drama and depression.
Yeah. But thank goodness he did, because it would not be the show it is today if he hadn't.
I mean, he definitely took a lot of risks, and they paid off well. But in that time period, like, people didn't do really over-the-top depressing musicals. Like, it wasn't until, like, the 80s, I feel like, where we got... maybe the 70s where it kind of started, but, like, when I think of those really dark comedy musicals, I'm thinking of, like, Sweeney Todd and...
That's good.
Yeah.
Spring
Into
Awakening.
the Woods and stuff like that. And those were all 80s.
Yeah, because I mean, Chicago at its core, like, it's why it's good that he put his spin into it, because it is a darker story with comedic moments. There's comedic relief throughout it, for sure, but it's not
in most musicals.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's why I love musicals so much. And, like, I really do tend towards these dark. Like, Cabaret is my favorite, but when you look at Cabaret in its original run versus where it is now, the original run was, like, very happy and very, like, all the songs were upbeat. Like, the Money song was, like, And then now it's like money, 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 money. Like it's very slowed down and darkened, and he did that.
Yeah.
And that makes it a better show. But it's just, it wasn't done then. The 50s weren't, like, 50s and 60s weren't the time to be like, let's just be.
Well, it's like like keeping up with the Joneses and putting a face on for your neighbor kind of thing. It wasn't about real life. And then
it was about taking yourself out of real life.
Putting yourself together and going out there like they did back in the day.
So he's taking it and he's trying to, you know, like you said, he's like, you guys are killers, you're murderers, dance like that. And then we get to the scene of both reach for the gun. And it's just clear that Gwen is not the dancer she used to be. She's older and it's not as easy for her.
I know.
And I wonder if it was like, the thing that I noticed the most was that she was in sneakers. And I don't know why I noticed that the most, but it was just everyone else was in character shoes and she was in sneakers. And I was like, are they trying to comment?
Like the jazz shoe, the white one, you mean?
Was it a jazz
think
shoe?
it's
It looked like a
old school
sneaker
jazz.
to me for some reason.
But yeah, the white one. Different to everyone else. Yeah, totally.
It just drew my eye
That's
to
a
her.
good point.
Yeah.
Can't handle the heels. Well, after a while, dancing in heels after a while, your freaking calves hurt. Yeah. All that good stuff, don't they?
You know, and her and Fosse are having this back and forth, and then he concedes and makes it a sit-down puppet show.
But again, amazing because that makes it in the show. That's one of my favorite. But it works so much better being the puppet. So his creative genius, I do not think he was doing that on purpose. I think his higher purpose was that it would actually look better, or he felt sorry for her, but then
I
it was
think
going to
he
look
was
better.
trying to make it look the best it could with her,
With
and
her.
he knew that with her he couldn't go all out because she couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, so how am I going to make it look the best it can with somebody that
worked
can't do the
well.
dancing? And it ended up working really well.
Yeah.
But we're going through this whole thing, and throughout this entire time, like he's going first to his assistant director, and then to Patty, and then eventually a dancer to get drugs.
I know. We'll talk about drugs. Listen to this comment. McKenna says, I thought when he was asking the assistant for drugs, it was to pep up Gwen. That's a good call. That's very kind. But he's not that kind of guy. He's for himself.
But everybody's saying no except for the dancer, and I think he knew because she was so scared.
Yeah, well,
She like wanted to keep her job.
it's such typical, like, whether it's he's using his power, you know, or most, you know, so many times that when this happens, whether it's using the power for sex or for whatever, but like it's still the same thing.
I mean, that's so low. Like, that's like a principal, someone who's super high up, having to go to a plebe to ask for a favor. Like, that's sad on his part. Like, he just couldn't get it up here, so okay, last
Patty
chance.
was my favorite though, because Patty was just like,
Yeah.
like hell no.
And that's when, you know what I mentioned earlier on one of our news and facts about how they had that agreement about what would happen at the funerals and the tap dance versus the 4-hour eulogy. So that's obviously, they put that in there, so that's cool.
But we get this whole thing because Gwen actually kind of tells them, like, nobody wants to say anything to you about the show. That they're all afraid of you. And they're all afraid of what might happen if they do say anything. So they come to me. And she's like, and we don't have a good ending. Which we saw, you know, during the rehearsal they were fighting about. She goes, the ending doesn't work. It falls flat. We need a better ending. And so she's like, Roxy specifically needs an ending song. And we get Roxy's ending song, which is Nowadays. And Bob makes the decision that he's like, I think we need to make this a duet after everybody's like just applauding her for singing it. And she's not happy at all. And we get this huge fight between them where she kind of, I thought it was so interesting. She lashed out at him, threatening, being like, one call from me and you're gone. And as we know, like this entire time I'm watching this, being like, I know he doesn't budge because I know it ends up being a duet. So I'm like, I was kind of like frustrated that we didn't get to see where the cave happened, but we know it did. And he didn't get fired, and
I
got
love
his
the
way.
way. I love the way after she's finished her spiel, he goes, okay, Gwen, so I can see you taking this quite personally. Really? Yeah, but I was surprised, and I think it was not very professional that she does lash out like that in front of everyone else, obviously knowing that they're all there to support her, so that's a bit unfair on her part. Totally get it, though. And I think he had a really good way of actually getting around it. He didn't lash back. He didn't fight back. He just said, well, this is what I want to try.
This is one of those instances where I'm on Bob's side.
Yeah.
Because it was better for the show.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's one of those, I love this scene so much because they really did such a good job this whole series of showing you where those conflicts came from and the times that Bob was wrong and that he was selfish or, you know, whatever it was. So you understand where she's coming from in the argument, but you're still just like, it's not valid right now. It's not, you know, this isn't the time to be bringing it up. And also, as we all know, like you said, that like it does work better as a duet. It ended up being a duet. And I'm kind of the same where I'm a little frustrated that we didn't get to see what happened. But I'm also like, that's kind of a cool choice to just kind of have it end on this like power note from Gwen just being like, here's my dime.
And the next thing is like,
And then
there's
it's a
a
duo.
work.
Yeah.
He gets what he wants again.
which was the best for the show. I don't think that scene works as well as a solo because Velma Kelly is, when you watch that show, I feel like more people are on Velma's side than Roxy, so you don't.
Definitely.
It's like one of those things where it's like you want somewhat of a happy ending, but you also kind of don't want a happy ending because these people are terrible people.
Yeah.
But for some reason, you still. And maybe it's because I saw the movie first, and Catherine Zeta-Jones just did such an amazing job with Velma Kelly. But I'm rooting for her more than Roxy in the show usually.
Yeah.
So we get the duet, and then it's opening night, and the two girls, Gwen and Cheetah, get some great reviews, but the show doesn't seem to get the best reviews.
Ouch.
Which Bob's taking really hard. So this is like a great parallel that we see because we see Gwen taking something so hard because she wants to still be the star. We see Bob taking it hard because he wants his portion of the show to be great, not the actors. And they both are unhappy with each other about it, not with the show or whatever it is. They're unhappy with each other. And Gwen then develops some polyps, and she has to go get surgery, and she gets replaced by Liza in the show. And that's when now the show's getting great reviews. And now it's getting a line out the door.
And it's all about ticket sales, let's be honest. If you can't sell the tickets, you can't have a show.
And I mean, it's one of those things that, like, what does that do to your psyche when you as the actress are getting great reviews, but the show isn't? And then you're replaced, and then the show starts to get great reviews from
because
that.
It was that moment that you realize, like, how much he did change to accommodate her.
Yeah. And yeah, like again, the theme of this episode of egos kind of battling each other. Yeah, when you're sitting there and you see that of like, oh, literally these changes that he only made for me are now changing the entire review of the show. Whether that was all that changed the review or not, like that's all you're gonna see if you're Gwen Verdon at this point.
And I understand Bob calling her to like, because he wanted to get ahead of it. He didn't want her to find out on her own that the times came because he had promised we're not going to do press. Like no one's going to know that Liza came in.
Yeah.
It's just going to, like, unless it's word of mouth. And that's not the case. And I get that he wanted to like prepare her, but I'm also just like, she just got out of surgery. Is this the best time?
And did he encourage that surgery to take her out on purpose, do you think?
I don't
think.
I don't know if he did that on purpose.
Don't you reckon?
Because if you continue to sing with polyps, it will ruin your voice.
I feel like it's
agree.
one of those things that's like, he
it was
did have her
convenient.
best interest, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it serves a purpose
I
for
think
me
it was
too.
an opportunity.
Yeah.
An opportunistic moment. It was like,
Yeah.
she needs this, but I'm also going to try to find a positive in this for myself. But I don't think he was like, oh yeah, I can get her out of the show now. I don't feel like that was the motivation.
Yeah,
Well,
polyps.
we'll never know.
Yeah.
He always seems like, though, he's always in it for, like, he's very good at placating everyone, but really getting what he wants, you know, to make himself feel better in all of it.
But during this phone call is kind of when that's when the whole thing happens of like, did you change the choreography? And he's like, yes, I did. And she's like, you never thought I could hold this thing. And he's like, I thought you could 15 years ago.
Which might be true, but is unfortunately not the case.
This is one of those instances where neither party is completely wrong or completely right. They both were doing things in the wrong, and they both were doing things that were justified. And that's what makes it hard, because it's like, you understand Gwen's motivation, and like she's not doing what's best for the show. She's doing what's best for her in a lot of this. But you also understand why she's doing that. And like,
It was the
anybody would.
one thing she wanted for so long. Just give it to her.
It was such a well-written episode because so often you found yourself just going like, oh yeah, I understand what they're saying, but... And then you go back to the other side and go, oh yeah, I understand why they're doing this, but... and that's like when you know it's good writing, when you're going back and forth like that the whole time.
When you can't, like, neither party is completely vilified and neither party is completely innocent.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to hate one person, you can't, because they're both right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he is doing what's best for the show most of this episode, and she's frustrated because she's not what's best for the show.
And I liked that in her kind of like this was kind of more focused on Gwen, whereas the last one was more focused on Bob, where they did the parallels of Lenny and like doing the stand-up bits and everything. To her just having those quick moments
The MC
leading
moments.
up of the MC
good.
moments like to parallel with Chicago
Yep.
into Razzle Dazzle. So when you had that payoff at the end, like it's always they're battling egos and what's going on, and I feel like those two episodes back to back of him doing the Lenny thing and her doing the Chicago MC thing, like back to back, was a really nice
awesome.
moment.
Yeah.
So good.
And that's
Yeah.
where we leave the episode. That's where we get the end of our penultimate, and now we just have the finale
Time to
ahead of
go.
us. So with that, let's get into our special segment, our Fosse Fun Facts, where Amy's going to tell us a little bit about some things that were happening in the episode that were true, and maybe some that were exaggerated. Thank you, Steph, our lovely producer in the booth.
Thank you so much, Steph, because that's how I always enter a room. I don't know how you knew that. So this is kind of a cool article that I found in the New York Post that kind of talks a little bit behind the scenes, but also about some of the specifics of what really was going on. So I thought it was a neat kind of like overlap here. But it's basically talking about the show and kind of where they're at right now, and saying, so as the director, as Fosse, he changed tone and direction of the show for Chicago. He also relied on the talents of Broadway legend Cheetah Rivera, who's also played by Blanca Marroquin. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I may not be. Who played Velma Kelly.
Sorry, I'm going to look this up. Sorry.
Thank
I think
you.
that she was in West Side Story on Broadway.
Oh, that would be, God, she'd actually be really good. Okay, I'm like envisioning her in West Side Story now. But who played Velma Kelly to Verdon's Roxy Hart to help Verdon through some vocal rough patches. So the Post spoke to Marroquin, who knows a thing or two about Fosse musicals. She's currently starring on Broadway in Chicago as Roxy Hart. So you may actually, so she's, on the circuit right now. But she was asked, when preparing for this role, did you get to meet Cheetah Rivera? I've known her for years and I've reached out. I said, Cheetah, this just happened to me. I need your blessing. I need to pick your brain. She was flying to London to do concerts and it didn't work out. She reached out the day of the premiere and said, I'm very excited to see you. It's your turn to shine. Followed up by, is it true that as we see in the series, Fosse changes what is supposed to be Gwen's big closing number in Chicago? So again, speaking of nowadays, yes, I've been told that by Nicole Fosse and other people that Bob wasn't satisfied with the closing number nowadays. Cheetah did stand up for Gwen, but Bob wanted to do it as a duet. Cheetah said it was Gwen's show, but Bob thought it would be more effective for them to do the duet. So I thought that was really interesting the way that they played that up, because they really did have her really stand up for Gwen, not just like a no, I don't want to, this is her. Like, she really tried. Like, you could tell she was actually passionate about, no, this is Gwen's number, this is Gwen's show, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Not just like a quick throwaway. So I'm glad they really put the emphasis on that scene.
Not when I was wrong. She was not in West Side Story, but she should be, because she'd probably be great.
I'm already
Anita.
envisioning it.
But she was in Beauty and the Beast. She was in Rent, Phantom of the Opera, Chicago, as well as
Amazing.
Into the Heights.
Oh,
So
Okay.
In the Heights.
now we have the connection of Lin-Manuel.
There we go.
Ah,
So let's get into our news and gossip with Miss Kim Davey.
yeah. Awesome. All right, so obviously this is a Chicago episode, so just a couple of bits and pieces on this. So the original production had 936 performances, the one with Gwen and Liza, right? 936, 1975 to 77. And that was obviously Gwen's last show ever on Broadway. Bye-bye, Gwen. 1996 in the revival, Anne Raking, obviously Fosse's longtime lover, plays Roxy, and she actually choreographed that revival in obviously Fosse style. They did 9,300 performances up until this month, 2019. So nearly 10,000 performances on Broadway. It's like been one of the longest shows ever with Phantom of the Opera, etc. That's insane. And then also back in 2003 in Wellington, New Zealand, on Friday nights while at university, I used to get all my friends into my room with the Chicago CD, drinking wine, going crazy, and teaching them all about musical theatre. True story.
Like it.
I like that.
We know Chicago soundtrack from Woe to Go off the top of our heads, drinking uni styles. Great life.
There you go.
Theatre buff.
All right, guys. Well, that about does it for us tonight. We are unfortunately out of time, so we're gonna have to hold off on predictions. I'll just throw out one for all of us, where I think it'll end. I think we're all agreed that the next episode we'll find out his death.
Wait, he dies?
What? Oh,
But until next week, guys, where can they keep up with you to find any other things that they would like to chat about Fosse or Verdon?
While she's getting over this new fact, everyone, you can find me at Kim Davey Live on almost social media. That's Kim Davey Live. And
You can find me at Amy Maestri on Twitter and Instagram.
And you guys can find me at BRI_Phipps, PHIPPS on Twitter and Instagram as well. And we will see you all back here next week for the finale. Bye.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.